In 2025, America is witnessing a fall down not seen in generations. From the heartland of Iowa to the vegetable valleys of Sonora, fields now sit silent. Over 1.7 million acres of farmland remain unplanted, because tractors were trapped in the US-Mexico border as a part of a machinery blockade that halted farming altogether. At the same time, tens of thousands of US farms have shut down, choked by debt, fuel prices, and broken supply chains. The farmer strike, sparked by a fight for the right to repair their own equipment, has triggered a domino effect no one was prepared for. That leads to even the biggest chains in history like Wendys, McDonald's, KFC, all reporting location closures, more than just a food crisis. Experts say that it could be the cracking of the American system. If the farms fall, the food falls. And if the food falls, then what is left for Americans in the future? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And today, we will reveal 20 fast food chains going out of business as farmers shut down production in the US. Let's begin. Number 1, McDonald's. 100 tractors locked at the border, dozens of farms abandoned, and outside a McDonald's in Missouri, a line of elderly folks waiting quietly only to be told we're sold out today. That's not a news report. That's America in 2025. There was a time when McDonald's was more than just a brand. It was breakfast before work, a shared lunch with your family, or a cheap dinner after a long shift. In its prime, McDonald's served over 25 million Americans daily. Egg McMuffins were warm, dependable, and cost under $3. But now, nearly 200 locations across farming states like Iowa and Nebraska have shuttered in silence. Not for lack of demand, but because there's nothing left to fill the kitchen anymore. This is more complicated than just a price hike. After years of rising costs, broken tractors, and blocked equipment, thousands of farmers from Wisconsin to Sonora finally walked away from the fields. Their revolt began with silence. Tractors parked idle after John Deere refused to unlock repair software. Then came the shutdowns. In just 3 months, egg prices more than doubled. Beef surged over 70%. The Big Mac couldn't survive a supply chain that no longer existed. And McDonald's, it was never built for fragility. Unlike competitors who shifted to domestic sourcing, it relied on mass farming and massive ports. But when farm production falters and containers stall at the border, the world's biggest burger brand crumbles. Franchisees were quietly told to cut menus, reduce hours, and close stores in areas where delivery trucks no longer arrived. But numbers don't tell the whole story. What's harder to explain is the bitter feeling. When you drive 20 miles from a rural town just for a breakfast sandwich, and the lights are off, when your child asks for a Happy Meal, and you can only offer an apology. When the last familiar meal on your weekly budget quietly disappears, there are no headlines for this kind of grief. Only the quiet question, is it true that a country as rich as America somehow can't guarantee breakfast anymore? And while some chains like Popeyes endure, thanks to smaller menus and local sourcing, McDonald's has become a cautionary tale. The egg sandwich didn't just vanish, it exposed the crack running through the center of an entire system. So if the giant can vanish so easily, maybe the real question isn't what's missing today, but what else we've been counting on that could be gone by tomorrow. Number 2, Subway. Imagine one day your favorite meal, the one you used to count on for many years, just disappeared, because even the farm of the richest country in the whole world cannot provide anymore. And that's no longer a question. Across Middle America, empty Subway storefronts have quietly replaced the spots where millions once found a hot, affordable lunch. At its peak, Subway was everywhere. Over 27,000 locations in the United States alone, it was where workers grabbed lunch under $5, where tired parents picked up something green for their kids, where students could stretch a foot long into dinner and tomorrow's breakfast. But now, more than 500 Subway locations have closed in less than 18 months. The reasons go far beyond business mismanagement. They actually go back to the soil itself. The freshest sandwich in fast food collapsed when the farms that fed it went dark. Nearly 2 million acres of farmland in Mexico's Sonora and Baja California were left unplanted. After John Deere tractors, key to harvest, were held at the border during a months-long inspection blockade, no tractors meant no vegetables. That single disruption led to a surge in prices. Tomatoes rose 60%, lettuce 48%, bell peppers rationed by volume. The Eat Fresh motto began to mean eat what's left. And the bread is even worse. The wheat in Subway's buns comes from Midwest farms, and tens of thousands of which have shuttered since 2021 under crushing fertilizer prices, droughts, and mounting debt. The USDA reported winter wheat acreage hitting its lowest level since 1913. That's hard to believe. That's true. Subway was never vertically integrated. Instead, it relied entirely on outside farmers and fragmented distributors. When the fields died, the stores followed. Some franchisees were forced to serve sandwiches with only turkey, white bread, and sauce. Spinach and tomatoes disappeared for over a month, and customers, quietly, never returned. In towns like Erie, Pennsylvania, or Rockford, Illinois, Subway was the only place offering anything remotely healthy for under $5. Elderly couples split 6-inch combos. Single parents fed their kids vegetables they couldn't afford at the grocery store. When the vegetables vanished, and then the sandwich itself, something deeper disappeared too. Could it be control, predictability, and choice? Meanwhile, chains like Panera or Sweetgreen stay open, but only in upper-income neighborhoods, and only for those who can afford high-priced food. As the collapse widens, many people are left wondering, if you live paycheck to paycheck nowadays, could the thing you lose is just the meal, or your place in the system? Keep watching to see when even a sandwich becomes unreachable. What else might be next? Number 3. Wendys. In dozens of American towns, the only hot meal you could still count on now has nowhere to find because the food simply stopped arriving. We are talking about Wendys, and its story is even worse than these two chains above. Wendys used to be a symbol, the square burger made fresh, the $5 biggie bag that kept families fed on tight nights, the soft booth where retirees could sit without pressure. Wendys boasted over 6,000 US locations, deeply rooted in the Rust Belt and farm country, from Ohio to Iowa. But in 2024, more than 200 of those stores closed. Not with headlines, but in silence. The reason farms stopped producing the one thing Wendys cannot do without fresh beef. Since 2021, over 40,000 cattle farms have shut down across the Midwest, broken by fertilizer inflation, prolonged drought, and repair blackouts caused by the John Deere standoff at the border. With tractors locked behind customs barriers and replacement parts delayed for weeks, hay wasn't harvested, feed wasn't planted, and farmers became angry. No feed meant no cows. By early 2025, beef prices had jumped more than 70%. For Wendys, whose promise of never frozen beef defined its identity, that promise became a chain around its own neck. Franchisees reported paying double for beef patties. Some locations had to switch to partial menus. Others locked doors when deliveries stopped. Unlike global giants that diversified their sourcing, Wendys remained loyal to North American farms, and that loyalty, in the end, hollowed them out. While fast casual brands like Five Guys weathered the storm by tightening operations and raising prices, Wendys tried to preserve familiarity, and eventually, the brand paid the price in margin and trust. But the damage isn't just in profit, it's in places like Lima, Ohio, where the local Wendys was the last affordable fast food restaurant still offering fresh burgers. It's in aging towns across Michigan, where veterans would stop in for a free meal on Veterans Day. Now, those gestures, those memories, sit behind locked doors. In contrast, West Coast chains like In-N-Out have survived thanks to vertical supply control and serving fewer, wealthier markets. They stockpile, they prepare. But in Middle America, Wendys falls in a painful way. Number 4. Burger King. The Whopper didn't disappear because people stopped loving it. It disappeared because the farm went silent, and the farmers left behind couldn't figure out what to do. Once the second most iconic fast food chain in America, Burger King lit up malls, gas stations, and every plaza with the promise of a flame-grilled meal that didn't break the bank. In the early 2010s, over 7,000 locations dotted the country. For millions across the country, especially Kansas, Iowa, or Dakotas, the smell of a Whopper meant comfort. But in 2025, more than 400 Burger King restaurants have closed their doors. The real problem here is in some towns. They were the only major food option left. That flame went out from the collapse of the farms that once fed it. Nearly 1/3 of cattle farms in the central states have shut down since 2022, unable to buy feed, maintain equipment, or survive fertilizer costs that spiked year after year. When farmers walked away from their land, Burger King's supply chain crumbled. The wheat farms in Nebraska and Kansas didn't fare better. Red winter wheat, crucial for Burger King's buns, became scarce after droughts and diesel shortages halted planting. Grain prices soared over 50%. Suddenly, the economics of the Whopper no longer worked. According to leaked franchise memos, by spring 2020, the Whopper couldn't be sold profitably, even at $6.49. Burger King's once global sourcing advantage meant little when shipping containers stalled at U.S. ports, and tomatoes and lettuce from Mexico sat delayed under inspection protocols. In some regions, Whoppers arrived without produce. In others, stores quietly switched to frozen patties. Customers noticed and stopped returning. In small-town America, Burger King offered more than food. It was a warm seat in winter, a refillable coffee for retirees, or a place where minimum wage workers could sit down without judgment. When it closed, people didn't just lose a burger. They lost a little piece of predictability in a world growing more unstable by the week. Higher-end brands like Shake Shack remain, if you live near a city and can afford triple the cost. But for the average American family, that $4 flame-grilled burger was the reward after a long shift, a quick dinner between obligations, or a weekend treat that felt earned. So when the fields go quiet, the tractors rust, and even the Whopper flickers out, what else are we supposed to hold on to? Number 5. KFC. The Friday night bucket that once fed a family for $10 is vanishing because the farms that raise the chickens are going dark. KFC used to mean something familiar, a red bucket in the center of the table, filled with hot, crispy chicken. By the late 2000s, KFC had over 4,100 U.S. stores, deeply rooted in southern and midwestern towns. But by 2025, over 220 KFC locations have closed, mostly in agricultural states like Arkansas and Kentucky. The collapse started at the farm. Industrial chicken producers across Georgia and the Carolinas were hit hard by the farmer strike and border delays of John Deere equipment. Without tractors, hatcheries couldn't operate on schedule. Feed ran short. According to the National Chicken Council, broiler production fell by 13% in early 2025. KFC, built on tight, just-in-time delivery, had no buffer. Some stores received only tenders. Wings, thighs, and drumsticks disappeared from menus. Franchisees were told to remove unavailable items quietly, according to leaked Yum Brands bulletins. Families arrived hungry only to find their favorites gone. For working parents, the KFC bucket meant no dishes after a long week. For grandparents, it was a treat for visiting grandkids. But now, in dozens of towns, the sign is dark, and the promise of hot food at a fair price gone. While brands like Raising Cane's survive with streamlined operations, KFC's giant footprint is collapsing. When fried chicken turns into a luxury, what's left for the American dinner table? Number 6. Taco Bell. The taco, once the cheapest comfort on the American table, is disappearing not because demand faded, but because the fields that filled it fell silent. At its height, Taco Bell operated nearly 7,000 stores and served over 40 million people weekly. It was more than fast food, it was relief. A $1 burrito, a $5 cravings box, something warm when the fridge was bare. But by 2025, over 300 Taco Bell locations have shut down, especially in rural and border towns. The reason isn't customer loss, it's collapse one crop at a time. Taco Bell depends heavily on vegetables from Mexico lettuce, tomatoes, onions all now in short supply after border delays stalled John Deere farm equipment. With over 1.7 million acres unplanted, vegetable exports dried up. U.S. Distributors reported shortages reaching 40% by March 2025. Meanwhile, American dairy farms, crippled by feed shortages and farm shutdowns, left cheese and sour cream scarce. Franchisees in Arizona and Nevada began cutting items. Crunch Wraps lost lettuce. Tacos came with filler substitutions. Internal ratings dropped. Customers noticed and left, while Del Taco adapted using frozen bulk storage and local growers. Taco Bell, built for high speed, couldn't adjust fast enough. For low-income families, Taco Bell wasn't luxury, it was dinner. It was midnight meals after late shifts. But now, drive-thrus are closed, employees gone, parking lots empty. If even a taco, just a tortilla, some meat, a handful of lettuce can no longer reach the people who need it most. What part of daily life still feels reliable? Number 7. ChickfilA. ChickfilA was once America's most dependable fast food brand, with over 3,000 U.S. stores and top customer satisfaction ratings for 8 consecutive years. Its success came from consistency, polite staff, clean counters, and reliably hot chicken. But in 2025, that reliability is under strain. Over 90 locations have reported product shortages or temporary shutdowns, particularly in southern states. The collapse began in the poultry heartlands of Arkansas and Georgia, a wave of farmer strikes, compounded by feed delays and broken machinery due to John Deere's service lockouts, caused a 13% drop in broiler output. ChickfilA, known for sourcing only high-quality U.S. poultry, was hit especially hard. Egg shortages followed. Breakfast items like biscuits and minis relied on large-scale farms and Iowa farms that have now halted production due to feed inflation and unpaid debt, with wholesale egg prices jumping 122%. Supply lines crumbled. Chick-fil-A's decision not to import or freeze goods became a trap. Unlike competitors, it refused shortcuts, and now key menu items are missing. Spicy sandwiches, chicken biscuits, even nuggets are unpredictable for millions. Chick-fil-A was the quiet anchor of the work week. But when even this sanctuary of order falters, it leaves behind long lines, limited menus, and rising prices. If the most disciplined brand in America can't find chicken, what are the rest of us supposed to hold on to number 8? Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut was once the soul of Friday night. Over 6,000 U.S. stores brought people together with personal pan pizzas, red booths, and that unmistakable smell of melted cheese and baked dough. For kids, it was a reward. For parents, it was a break. For small towns, it was a weekly gathering. But by 2025, more than 400 Pizza Hut locations have closed, with closures concentrated in wheat belt states and dairy-dependent regions. The collapse starts with the crust. Over 40,000 American farms have gone under since 2021, many of them dairies. National milk output has fallen 9%, pushing mozzarella prices up more than 60%. Simultaneously, wheat fields in Kansas and Nebraska were left unplanted due to equipment blockades and fertilizer delays. John Deere tractors sat unused at border crossings while orders for flour went unfilled. Pizza Hut relies on outside dough and cheese suppliers. When shipments failed, stores sat idle. Some locations received low-quality imported flour, leading to rubbery crusts and customer complaints. Franchisees trimmed menus. Others laid off staff or closed entirely. For many families, Pizza Hut wasn't just pizza. It was affordable togetherness, a meal that didn't require effort but brought joy. Now, in dozens of towns, that box is empty. If pizza night no longer arrives, what replaces the warmth it once brought to our homes? Number 9. Popeyes. You remember the sound, the crunch of spicy chicken after a long week, the red box passed across the counter, the smell that filled your car on a Friday night. But in 2025, that memory is being replaced by locked doors and empty warmers. Popeyes was never just fried chicken, it was celebration. After church Sundays, payday dinners, birthdays on a budget. In 2019, its chicken sandwich turned into a national craze. Sales soared, lines wrapped around blocks. By then, Popeyes had over 3,700 U.S. locations, but now, over 160 are closing or downsizing, especially across the South states that once kept the chain alive. The heart of Popeyes large. Flavorful chickens from farms in Mississippi and Arkansas has broken down. A farmer strike in 2024 over tractor lockouts and feed delays collapsed hatcheries and disrupted production. The broilers that made Popeyes famous simply aren't reaching kitchens anymore. Even worse, signature spices like cayenne and garlic powder stalled offshore due to port congestion, leaving stores without the seasoning that gave it soul. Franchisees tried to adapt no spice, limited menus, shorter hours, but loyal customers noticed. The sandwich disappeared, social media exploded, and in town after town, the doors stopped opening at all. For families, Popeyes was the reward when there was nothing left in the fridge. Now, there's nothing left behind the counter either. If even the Friday night feast, the thing we all waited for, is gone, how much of our shared flavor is still ours? Number 10. Arbys. What if the sandwich you turned to when everything else felt out of reach suddenly wasn't there? No sign, no roast beef, just silence where comfort used to be. For decades, Arbys served as the affordable warmth in working towns. With over 3,300 stores at its peak, it stood for something real: thick slices of roast beef, $5 combos, and that smoky flavor that felt like dinner with purpose in blue-collar towns across Ohio, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania. Arbys was more than fast food, it was a small promise kept. But by summer 2025, more than 115 Arbys locations have shuttered. The reason the farms that once made it possible can't anymore. Unlike processed meats, Arbys' signature roast beef relied on real, grain-fed cattle from Midwest ranches, but those ranches are disappearing. With fertilizer shipments delayed, diesel prices surging, and tractors broken from the John Deere standoff, thousands of family-run operations in Nebraska and South Dakota shut down. USDA data confirms an 18% drop in cattle production by Q1 2025, meaning no beef, no sandwich. Then came the shipping blow. Arbys packaging supplies, sourced from Mexico, were stranded at ports in California as over 10,000 containers sat still. Even when meat arrived, stores couldn't serve it. With no alternatives and no flexible menu, many Arbys couldn't adapt. Unlike Subway or Jimmy John's, there were no chicken wraps or veggie subs to fall back on. And so, locations quietly closed, one by one, for millions. Arbys was a dependable meal after a long shift, a sandwich they didn't have to question. When even that disappears, what steady part of life goes next? Number 11, Jack in the Box. Have you ever pulled into that glowing drive-thru after a long shift, only to find it dark, no menu, no movement, just silence where your late-night meal used to be? That's the new reality for many who once counted on Jack in the Box. Designed for America's off hours, it offered more than burgers or tacos. It was comfort at 1 a.m. A stop that didn't judge how late or how tired you were. With over 2,200 locations at its height, especially in the West and South, it served shift workers, truck drivers, and single parents needing a meal without fuss. But by mid-2025, more than 140 locations have gone dark, especially in working towns across Texas, Nevada, and Arizona. What broke the chain wasn't demand, it was delivery. Jack in the Box's massive, diverse menu became its downfall when the supply web snapped. From clamshell containers stuck in ports to eggs and tomatoes stalled on farms, the system froze. Its signature tacos suffered most, dependent on ground beef and cornmeal from collapsing Midwestern farms. According to USDA, beef prices spiked 44%, and corn shipments missed entire planting cycles due to tractor breakdowns and border equipment delays. Internally, franchisees reported chaos: missed breakfasts, unavailable condiments, and full days without core items. Some stores saw 2 locations close in the same city within days, leaving entire neighborhoods without a single working drive-thru. In places like Fresno or Albuquerque, Jack in the Box was more than food. It was a soft light on a hard night. And when even that disappears, where does the working class go next for a simple warm meal? Number 12, Dairy Queen. What do you tell your grandkids when their summer cone just doesn't exist anymore? Dairy Queen once meant memories, report card rewards, after-church stops, roadside breaks. With over 4,300 locations, it was woven into American summers. But since 2023, more than 180 stores have closed, especially in dairy heartlands like Wisconsin and Indiana. Why? Because milk is vanishing. Over 7,000 dairy farms shut down since 2021. Broken milking machines, feed too expensive, and locked John Deere software meant cows went dry. Without cream, no soft serve. USDA reports show a 73% spike in cream prices. Even when ingredients were available, foam cups and whipped topping got stuck offshore, and rural franchise owners, already struggling with energy costs, couldn't survive empty freezers. So when even soft serve a child's treat, a grandparent's bond melts away. What else in small-town America is disappearing next? Number 13, Sonic DriveIn. What do you do when the car hop rolls up only to say there's no food left to serve? Sonic used to be pure joy: neon burgers, roller skates, milkshakes under stars. With over 3,500 locations, it defined roadside Americana. But in 2025, over 120 have vanished, especially across Oklahoma and Kansas. Why no onions, no buns, no slushy cups? Drought and labor losses slashed onion supply by 28%. Kansas wheat never got planted. Plastic cups stuck in port backlogs. The trays rolled, but came back empty. Franchisees couldn't cover rising freezer costs or customer walkouts over missing burgers. Some closed for good. And in towns where Sonic was the last bright spot, where kids got treats and elders ordered chili dogs from their car, the silence now stings. when even that joyful beat from the speaker fades away. What part of American fun are we losing forever? Number 14. Hardees. What if your favorite thick burger disappeared not from inflation, but because there's no beef or bread left? Carl's Jr. and Hardees once stretched across America with over 3,500 locations. But by mid-2025, more than 200 have shut down. The thick burger's two key ingredients, U.S. beef and premium buns, are collapsing. The cattle supply fell after over 40,000 farms shut down, worsened by feed shortages caused by the 2024 John Deere strike. Meanwhile, Kansas wheat fields went unplanted due to tractor breakdowns. Without beef or buns, franchisees couldn't serve core items. Consumers walked away, unlike In-N-Out, which runs tight menus and local sourcing. Carl's Jr. and Hardees became too big to adapt. In towns where they were the last burger stop, people now see dark windows and one more part of daily life gone. Number 15. Culver's. What if the burger that felt like home vanished because the farm that raised the cow no longer exists? Culver's thrived on Midwest roots with real beef, fresh dairy, and frozen custard. But in 2025, more than 70 locations have paused or shut down, especially in Wisconsin and Iowa. Its strength, local sourcing, became its weakness. Small farms folded. Nearly 900 Wisconsin dairies closed since 2021. Egg and cream shortages cut custard production by 40%. No local supply, no Butterburger. Culver's refused to compromise, but without product, loyalty isn't enough for small towns. Losing Culver's is losing more than food. It's losing a place where families gathered, where burgers still tasted real. When even the food we trusted, burgers, tacos, soft serve, disappears, not from choice, but from collapse. It's no longer just about hunger. It's about losing what once held our communities together. This isn't just a supply issue. It's a warning. If the farms fall, the food falls, and we fall next. Share this video if you've seen your favorite restaurant close. Leave a comment what chain disappeared in your town. Let's document this collapse before it erases everything we knew.